So athletes that have that competitive nature, which not all humans have, they're motivated by sports and winning. So I might focus on teaching them that anger and those outbursts and that frustration is going to take you out of the zone and out of the moment and your peak performance. But you can't just decide at a competition or a tournament on Saturday to not do that anymore. You have to learn and practice other alternatives and managing your emotions and all that on a daily basis.
Welcome back to the Significant Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rogers. You just heard Dawn Grant, renowned mental trainer for professional athletes, and she reminded us that you can't just show up on game day and expect to flip a switch. If you want to compete at your peak, you have to practice not only your skills, but also how you'll manage your emotions, your focus, and your mindset. Dawn has worked with Olympic athletes, PGA champions, and elite performers across all sports. But what makes her remarkable is how she breaks down the myths around things like hypnosis and mental training and shows us how practical, simple, and powerful they can be. One of the biggest takeaways from our conversation was Dawn's advice to raise athletes to be practicers instead of gamers. We've all used that phrase, haven't we? That means building daily habits, mentally and physically, that prepare you for those pressure moments. It's a shift that changes everything for athletes, coaches, and parents alike. What you're about to hear is a masterclass in mental performance. Before we dive in, a quick reminder, the new baseball, volleyball, basketball, and softball recruits journals are now available along with the Significant Recruiting Launchpad classes, and you can find them all at CoachMattRogers.com. All right, let's get to my conversation with Dawn Grant. We're going to have a lot of learning today. I'm excited to share you with our audience. We have a lot of parents with student athletes and a lot of high school and college coaches, athletic directors that listen. Before we click record, you talked about that there's some naysayers when it comes to the mental side of sports. And a lot of people just don't understand what mental performance is all about. Fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, and it goes far and broad. I personally even feel that the college hasn't caught up. So, like a sports psychologist in the curriculum for sports psychology is not even close to what I'm doing. What I'm doing, and what I then therefore believe is the true mental game, is related to not only like confidence, but the quality of the thoughts, worry, doubt, fear, second guessing, trying too hard, a wandering mind thinking about something else altogether, a previous hole, a previous station, the score, dinner, an argument you had with somebody earlier. There's so many things that could be going on mentally that takes somebody out of the moment. And we could also say takes them out of what would be the peak performance state, already identified as the zone or the flow. So we can break that down in this interview also. Is if we look at what the flow is or the zone state, we already have a predetermined kind of recipe. And most people, most athletes are doing the opposite of all of these elements. So, in order to have what I consider a really great mental game, you've got to have calm presence and focus and be properly using your conscious mind and have a good, pure subconscious that's got great mechanics in it through repetition, but also great belief systems, because those are thoughts through repetition that become habitual. And that's what we have, a belief then. My experience, a lot of either people just don't believe in the mental game, which I find so fascinating because I'm like enthralled in it, right? So when I meet people that don't believe in it or don't really give it credit, I'm a bit surprised, because if we just say as simply as, will worry cause you not to play well? Or will anger cause you not to play well? Or if you're still focused on a previous hole or station or stand, like most people would say, yeah, that does cause a problem. And that is the mental game. Overthinking the score, being in the final, being in the lead and trying to maintain that lead, or doing a shoot off and trying to stay calm under that pressure. That's all mental game stuff.
It's so interesting you talk about that, because I know you've worked with a number of PGA professionals. We saw Tommy Fleetwood yesterday and has not won a PGA championship yet. He's one of my favorite golfers. I root for him every time he plays. And yesterday he gets the 16th, 15th hole. He's up by 2 strokes and
Mm,
he falls apart.
brutal.
And you could just tell afterwards that he didn't have an answer for it. And I've been there. I was that type of athlete that I was really good. And then when the pressure came on, I lost it a little bit. I couldn't get my focus back.
Yeah.
What do we say to those athletes after a round like that or after a game like that where they had the lead, they had everything in control, and something in between their ears, they lost their focus? Where do we begin with that situation?
Well, again, I feel like it's education, right? Because even at the PGA Tour pro level, they may not totally understand the mental game. And it doesn't really matter how elite an athlete is. It does not mean that they totally have a grasp on it. I've seen that over and over again. Some of them have plowed through, some of them have been doing their sport for so long that they maybe have acquired a mental game without realizing it. But to be able to implement some mental skills in moments like that, if they don't understand it enough to acknowledge my mental game's important right now, or is wavering, and how to fix it, and what to do about it, and then make the correction, then they'll just fall apart in a situation like that. And I think golf is a perfect example. We see it all the time on Sunday in the last holes. And for me, that makes golf interesting and fun to watch because I find that fascinating and funny that somebody at that level can still not have a strong mental game. And one of the other things is their go-to is mechanics. Their go-to is maybe changing the putter, or I don't know, it's usually something physical. Oh, my elbow sore.
Yeah.
They are these go-tos without recognizing, again, understanding or acknowledging that there's a mental aspect, and that's invisible unless you understand it, and then you can start paying attention to it. And that's probably why he was like confused, right?
Yeah. Where do you start? Let's put you in that situation. He's walking off the course. He signed his card and he's got 10 minutes with you before he's got to do something else. Where do you begin when somebody wants something so badly, loses it, that they have it in their hands? What's that conversation look like?
Again, that would be raising the awareness, right? So in that moment, if I had an opportunity to talk to him and he was willing to listen, it probably wouldn't be the 5 minutes after. It'd be the next day or something.
Right, sure.
And he would probably, I would ask him what was going through your mind at that time. What kind of thoughts were you having? And for some people, the thoughts are either, they're also elusive. They're so used to thinking a certain way. It's so familiar. It's like wearing the same perfume or cologne every day. If you constantly doubt yourself or worry or regret or have belief systems that like I'll never win on the tour or I can never hold it together for an entire round, whatever the phrase is, sometimes it's so familiar that people don't even realize. So it can take a bit of me pulling. A lot of times people will say, I don't have negative thoughts. But then once I start questioning and talking to them, they're there. They just
Right.
don't realize it. Another thing that they'll deny is fear. One of the PGA guys I was working with, he was in the lead moving into the final hole on Sunday, and he started having the thoughts of, if I win this, both of my kids' college would be paid for, and I could get the sports car. He wanted Austin Martin. I'd get the sports car I always wanted. And you start thinking that way, and then what, right? You can either become too cautious, too careful, you can try too hard. Those things will get in the way of mechanics all the time. So, it is definitely a lot more than a 10-minute conversation or an hour afterwards. You have to be a willing participant to listen and then start really digging in there and start having an awareness. And in this example, that player may or may not have that awareness right now, but it would be a matter of time of working together to start paying attention to the negative thoughts or belief systems that are there. And then let's start tackling them and figuring out how to use your conscious mind better and subconsciously change some belief systems.
But you're saying it's not just the negative thoughts. Sometimes it's the overly positive thoughts. I get to pay
Yeah.
for my kids' education. I get this car. I don't have to worry about this debt. Sometimes that can weigh on us, that
When you're
positive
talking
stuff, just as
about,
much as the negative.
yeah, especially PGA, you're talking about $1 million and how much that can change your life. And it's
Yeah,
down to the final hole and the final shot. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a big thing as far as pressure. That same pro, just at another time we were working together, he had said to me that he never looked at the score, right? He didn't want to know score. He knew on the golf courses where the scoreboards were, and he would deliberately not look at them. And then when the little ladies are walking around with the scores, he'd deliberately not look. And he
Right.
said that he had that pretty much under control, except when the cameras would come and the large groups of people would come, because that was the clue. He was in the top five probably. And as soon as the cameras had come, he'd fall apart. We did work around that, but mental training and some hypnosis, and the hypnosis helped him change the belief around the cameras, meaning that's great. I gave him suggestions of when the cameras are here, I get to show the world my great mechanics and how far I've come. And I love that those cameras are here. Like I totally shifted the perspective for him.
I love that. Yeah, I was a college basketball coach for a long time, and for me, and you tell me if I was off base here, but for me as a shooter, I don't want my shooters thinking about the scoreboard either. I don't want them thinking even about the moment. I want them going back to their training. I got a jump stop. If I have a solid base, man, I'm going to make it. And that's where I got to get. I got to get to that solid base. I know when I'm solid and my feet are locked, I'm going to make it. Are those the type of things you're taking an athlete through?
What you're referring to again is the mechanics,
Yeah.
right? A go-to,
Yeah.
but it is a familiar go-to. But the way that's working with the mind, that's beautiful, is the conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time. It's called back thousands of years in Eastern philosophy, it was called one-pointed attention. This knowing has been around for a long time. So if you tell your conscious mind, focus on the process, and you can manage it and be a supervisor of that through that, meaning stay on the process. Of course, it's going to want to wander. It reminds me of a little puppy that hasn't had training yet, doesn't know how to sit and heel. And you're teaching it, but it like wanders off and you go, come back, come back. That's how your conscious mind is at the beginning of any kind of mental training. Like it's wandering all the time. So you can
Right.
tell it to focus on the process. And there's lots of practice and ability to do that because there's an understanding, but actually getting it to do it is the next phase, right? The next
Right.
step in learning and getting better.
I kept thinking I'm going to go back to this golf tournament yesterday. At the last three or four holes, I don't know why my brain thinks this way, but I kept going, all right, if I'm this guy's caddy, what am I saying to him? So this may be a business for you. You might want to start focusing on
Caddies.
or the relationship, the caddy and the golfer, because I
Yeah,
just kept going, what would I say to this guy to calm his nerves? He just hit a bad shot. He's one of the best golfers, one of the best golf strikers in the game, ball strikers in the game. How do I get him back to remember that? So
it's yeah.
I don't know why my head went to that caddy, but I guess it's being a coach as long as I was my player's person. I was the guy they counted on to get them back mentally on track. And I don't know if
For
I ever did a
sure.
good job of it.
For sure. No, I totally understand. Back in 2008, I worked with VJ Singh, and one full day I worked with his caddy because that is the person in his ear. And another thing that's popping into my mind is related to child athletes and parents. The parents are the caddy, right? So a
Right.
parent needs to understand how to be more than just the mechanics, like understanding the mind. I have like online courses for athletes, and one of the things I say is that if a parent's going to enroll or register their child for one of these online courses, like you do it too, because you need to speak the same language. If the athlete is learning French and you don't know French, there is no communication there. Like you need to learn the language and what your child's working on so that you can be their caddy in any sport, not just golf, right? You can be their caddy. You're saying the right thing. You're not just saying, it's okay, buddy, move on, just forget about it. That's not productive. It's not constructive. And that's what a lot of people will do. Or they'll get upset with, oh, you can do better than that. This is unbelievable, which is degrading, right? There's so many different things, but looking at things in a healthy, constructive, productive way and learning from experiences. Every miss is a bright, flashing neon sign of what you need to work on to get where you want to go. But what happens instead is people get mad they get upset, they get sad, they get angry, they get resentful, they want to quit, they just want to forget about it, they just want to move on, pretend it didn't happen. And there's some mental trainers out there that will even tell them to visualize that they did it, period. There
Yeah.
is some of that I teach, but it's much broader than that. If it's just pretend you hit it or made it, period, and then move on, that's just delusional, right? That's fake, and your belief system won't even accept it, and it's not going to do anything. You have to pull out the information. Like, why did I miss? And not be mad about it. If I continually doubt myself and am thinking about maybe another teammate and how they maybe, and like clay shooting, you're in squads, teams basically, and you take turns to go up and shoot. So if there's a maybe a higher level, higher class shooter, and that person is shooting a pair in a certain order, and your plan was to shoot it in the opposite order, and you start doubting yourself because well, that guy's higher class level and he's a better shooter, so I'm going to do what he says, and then you don't feel comfortable, but you say pull anyways, and you try to shoot, like that whole scenario. So it's really being able to be confident with yourself and believing in yourself and not just trying to morph into what somebody else is doing. There's so many different things like that, and every personality is different. So it can play out in different ways. Like anger may be more of an issue for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was for me as a coach. And I worked with a sports psychologist a couple years back, and I told her, I said, there's too many times I'm walking out of practice or a game and I'm beating myself up because I'm like, why did I say that? Why did I handle it, that situation the way I did? And one of the things we worked on is having that situation in my head and going, okay, how would I handle it differently if that happens again? So I'm curious about that because for me, there's so many families that have kids that play volleyball and basketball and soccer and softball that listen to this. So I don't want to stay on golf for too long. But me as a golfer, I had a pro 20 years ago tell me, here's what I want you to tell yourself every time you swing the club. Use your arms to swing the club to the target. And it's amazing what that phrase did for me. And I try to do the same thing for my daughter, who's a volleyball player. Before she serves, I'll go, remember your breath and find your pace.
Yeah.
It's amazing what that does for her just to remember those two things. Is it that simple sometimes for an
Well,
athlete?
and that's a similar example to what you said before. And it goes back to that one pointed attention
Yeah.
and a singular focus. And the process is a good thing to focus on because it's in that moment. And the thing is, there is more going on. That's a mental cue. But once you start throwing in other things, my teammate is being nasty to me. The other side, the other team is cheating. I'm winning or I'm on a streak. Once you start throwing those things in, then it makes it tricky to focus on something like a process. So that's where it gets complicated. It sounds like a simple solution, and it is a good solution, but you have to train your mind to be able to stay on it and to not go down these rabbit holes when these
Right.
other things happen. That's really the trick. And so it sounds is keep it simple, stupid, the kiss thing, but it's harder than it seems because the conscious mind is this puppy, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of times I think of it like a dog that's been living in the wild and all of a sudden you want to domesticate it. So, depending on your age, how long has your conscious mind been living in the wild?
Yeah.
A long
Well,
time.
and tell me if you're seeing this too, but with YouTube and Instagram now, there's so much coaching going on. You can go down a funnel of whatever type of athlete you are, or coach. There's 25 people telling you how to do it.
Yeah.
And my worry is always there's too many chefs in the kitchen. There's too many voices in their head. How do
Yeah.
we, and you got to find that person. You got to find that person, that
Hmm.
voice that fits you, not like you said, not your teammate, not the person that's maybe performing better than you. You got to find the one for you. How do we do
Yeah.
that? How do we fight through the mess to get to that voice?
Yeah. So, I have a few examples coming to my mind or analogies. I can remember 20 years ago or 15 years ago listening to golf commentators talk about a particular pro swing. And there was almost this underlying belief that the swing it must be a certain way. And that one's weird and that one's wrong and they shouldn't be doing that. And then as a little bit time went on, there seemed to be more of an acceptance of the different swings. And I don't really hear that pointing the finger like there's something wrong with that swing. And then I've come over because I own a shotgun club and I have a lot of clay sporting clays competitors as clients. The way that I see that over there is they will instructor hop. They'll go around the country and they'll hire different instructors, and some instructors are world champions, so they're like, oh, that one's a world champion, so I'm going to go to that one, and that one's in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to go to that one. But there's all these little nuances in their techniques, and some techniques are completely different than others. And of course, that person, that instructor, that world champion, they think theirs is the right way. And what happens is this confusion. And I do feel like every body is different. And again, this goes back 15, 20 years when I was watching the golfers be ridiculed for not having that perfect stroke or something. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's flow is different as far as some people are hyper and some people are chilled out. And you got to really figure out what works for you. And I think it does help to maybe dabble just to figure out, I like that or I don't like that. This works for me. This doesn't work for me. But be really cautious to not go to a coach that 100% says, it's my way or the highway. This is the only way, even if it's not working for you or doesn't feel comfortable. Like you've got to move on and you've got to find somebody that you're compatible with. It's no different than any other relationship. Have somebody that respects and honors where you're at, has some expertise that they can contribute to it, but not think that what they have is for every human being.
I don't know how much you work with kids. I know you work with a ton of adults and professionals that are doing their thing at a very high level. Is there a difference in how we develop a 12-year-old athlete, and a 16-year-old athlete, a 20-year-old athlete, and a 30-year-old athlete? Is there a difference in how we communicate these things?
Yes and no. The no is there's no difference with worry is worry and doubt is doubt and lack of confidence is lack of confidence and fear is fear and getting overly upset and not being able to refocus. That's the same no matter what age. What I do notice is the older people get and the longer they've been performing, it reminds me of a really long file cabinet, right? They have
Right.
all these files in there of what could happen and what could go wrong and how many times I've been to this event and I've never won. So they can have a lot more crud in there. But the positive is they have a lot more wisdom and a lot more experience, right? So then you flip to the younger and they think they have wisdom, but they don't necessarily, right? They don't have all that experience. So they're still newbies at different things, maybe a new tournament or the first time they're competing at a certain level or whatever it is. And they don't have that big file cabinet. And the positive of not having that big file cabinet is they don't have all those fears and expectations going into something, those preconceived ideas like I'll never win here because I never have in 10 years, something like
Right.
that. They go in and that little chip on their shoulder helps them a little bit. So, and the other thing I've observed is the younger they are, and this is the case for every human, you have to want whatever it is that you're being connected with. The same with a coach or anything. If I talk about mental training, though, it can't just be the parent wants this kid. Like the parents watching this kid have temper tantrums, which we all have. It's not just kids. If they're kicking their clubs or they're throwing their ball and they're whatever, upset and sad or angry the whole rest of the night and taking it out on the dog when they get home, like this happens at every age. But there has to be the person themselves has to want to look at that and has to want to work on it. And so that to me is the only struggle with working with somebody younger is they have to want it. It can't be the parents that want it for them because again, this is all invisible, right? So the
Yeah.
quality of somebody's thoughts is happening in their head. They have to be the one to assess it, work on it, work on new skills, create new habits of how they think about things. And you can't just put that on somebody. So that would be what I would say about that.
Yeah, I love that. And we talk about, you hear it on TV when you're, whatever, you're watching a game and there's a rookie up at the plate at a baseball game or a rookie quarterback or a rookie kicker, whatever it may be. And the announcer will say, he may be just young enough not to know the situation he's in or she's in. My
Mm.
question for you is, let's go back to the file cabinet. How do we teach 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that are really getting into the competitive side of their sport? How do we teach them what to keep in the file cabinet and what to throw in the garbage can?
Yeah.
Is that an approach that we can take?
Yeah.
I'm begging as a parent of youngsters.
Again, what I'm doing is different than even what's taught in school. So I can talk about for sports psychology. So for what I'm teaching, what I teach is life skills. They are how to use your mind to your best ability for peak performance at everything. So if you're looking to, or you see you've got a feisty kid that gets really angry and gets really down on themselves, that's not just in sport, that's in life also. That's a character thing. And my feeling is you've got to first have the awareness and the understanding and learn about this and learn different ways, but you've got to practice it. And a lot of times people are motivated by sports. So athletes that have that competitive nature, which not all humans have, they're motivated by sports and winning. So I might focus on teaching them that anger and those outbursts and that frustration is going to take you out of the zone and out of the moment and your peak performance. But you can't just decide at a competition or a tournament on Saturday to not do that anymore. You have to learn and practice other alternatives and managing your emotions and all that on a daily basis. So you have to learn how to do that, and then you've got to get the repetition ahead of the tournament. No different than mechanics. You don't change your mechanics the day before, the week before an important tournament. You have to do it ahead of time. And that is absolutely the same with the mental game. So you have to learn skills and work on your mental game ahead of time. And the practice field is life. And that's another really important thing that I teach. I can show people and teach people what to do, but you've got to practice it daily in life. And then when you show up on Saturday, it's second nature. It's not some foreign thing you're trying to figure out how to implement. But the win-win is you're going to have better performance in the tournament. You're also going to be better in life. Like having understood and managing something like anger is going to be good for school and work and relationships and everything else.
I love that. Give us a couple of things that we can do with our kids if we're parents or coaches and we've got kids from that 10-year-old to 18-year-old range. What are some of those things that we can practice with them every day? Whether we're dropping them off at school, we've got that 5-minute car ride to school, or we're picking them up after school. Are there things that we can do to work on those things and focus on those things?
It's complicated again for a parent that doesn't know French, right? But I can teach you some things like, but again, most parents don't even know how to do this themselves for real, right?
Yeah.
Like you got a lot of parents that still have their anger outburst or resentful or regretful or worrisome or doubtful. And it's a human issue.
Yeah.
So if the adult can first start recognizing, wait, I do this myself and I want to learn how to do it different myself. And so I'm learning as I'm teaching. And so what would I do different here? And the thing is, let's say a child again picked up from school, they bombed a test that day, right? It would be more like reflecting. So this would in sports, it's what I call post segment routine. Post is after the shot, after the hole, after the round, after the event, after the station, whatever it is, a time to reflect in a constructive way. Like what, and starting with what did I do, especially, I don't know, let's say with test taking and a kid is working on doing well and increasing their grades, maybe improving the grades. So maybe I did well was I really did study hard this time. Like I did take the time to study. I went in, I slept good last night, but that moment of when I didn't know the answer is when I started getting anxious and falling apart and then I froze. So you got some positive and some negative. I don't even call them negatives normally, but there's the information,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's
Of
the
course.
neon sign. And so it's okay, so what can we do about that, honey? So you're telling me now that under pressure, you start feeling a lot of anxiety and then you freeze. So we need to work on that. Let's, again, it'd probably be seeking help. You could Google maybe like how to breathe through anxiety, how to change your thoughts, how
Yeah.
to redirect the mind to something more constructive. It's just easier said than done. So it's a little tricky because there are things like
Yeah.
breathing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and relaxing the body all the way down, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But doing that right now, because I'm telling you to, is one thing, but doing it when you have practiced it over time, then it will have more effect.
Yeah, maybe that's the great thing is on the way to school, on the way home, you're practicing those breathing techniques. A parent can take 20 seconds to say, hey, things go bad today. You get in a situation where you're confused or you don't have the answer or you don't know what to say. Just take that breath. Let's
Pause.
count in five, count it out five. I love that. To me, I want to be more of that parent. I don't want the drive to school and the drive home to be a
A
psychologist's
lecture or
office. I don't want to
something.
be their psychiatrist, but I do want to be able to share tips and tools with them and provide that support. And I think most of us parents do. I think
Yeah.
most of us parents, and you're a parent too, we want to give our kids some tools that nobody gave us.
Yeah, for sure. And on my social media, I actually do little 30, 60-second reels with tips constantly, and that's all free too. So that would be one way that people could learn some
Great.
different tips. But the pausing in a moment, another kind of human issue, not for just kids, but it's something that adults can work on and then teach their kids, is to not be reactionary, right? If we react instead of respond, there are underlying beliefs or patterns and habits that there are these knee-jerk reactions. So to be able to recognize which ones are problematic, which ones are causing me issues. Somebody says, "You're stupid, I hate you." Does somebody, the only reason that would affect somebody is if they believed it on some level themselves. If they didn't believe it, they'd probably look over their shoulder and be like, "Who you who you talking to?" Wait, what? That's not me. But if it hits that kid and the kid's crying after school or wanting to tell you about this or ready to fight that person, that's because it's like an open wound in there and that person pushed that button. So then that's another spot of awareness. Honey, that's not true for you. And the thing is, if you're noticing that those kind of words can affect you that way, then let's look at it. Do you really feel that you're a dummy and nobody likes you or whatever the words were? I noticed that these kids ignore me at school, so then they feel like they have evidence of it. So then it would be like, what kids do you play with? And what kids do seem to smile when you're coming over? And so you start to shift and have them focusing on the positives because they are there. They're there. Even if it's the teacher really loves you. Did you notice how she did blah, 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 blah the other day? And so it's repetition and thought that create beliefs. So if there's already a belief down in there that's negative, then it was repeated enough that it got in there in one form or fashion. So the old-fashioned way takes 21 days to change a habit. You have to repeat something more positive and then focus on the proof. People do like me. And then that can replace the negative belief, or that's one of the reasons I do hypnosis, because we can go in there even faster and just change the belief systems in the programming.
Let's dive into that. I've been holding back, but I want to get into hypnosis with you because I'm one of those people, I'm scared to death to do it. I've seen some people that have walked away with amazing results, and some people have walked away with nothing. What does hypnosis mean to you, and
Yeah.
why do you promote it?
It's funny because it's one more thing that I'm so enmeshed in that I find it interesting that there's still people out there that don't understand it. But there's misconceptions. I would say that the movies, media has probably fed into the misconceptions
Right.
because it's entertaining, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's true. So the here's the truth. First of all, meditation seems to be a little bit more widely accepted nowadays. It wasn't always like that. But if it was almost like a hare and a rabbit, whatever, a rabbit and a turtle in a race or something, like
Right.
the acceptance of meditation is a little bit ahead of the acceptance of hypnosis. But the bottom line is that the same state of mind. So they're identical in the state of mind. But so is some other things that you're super familiar with. So I like to think of a slope. Up here is beta, and then there's alpha, theta, and delta. So if you think of like this mountain slope or whatever, beta is the name that we have for measuring the conscious, because there's a subconscious also. This is the conscious mind. It's the conscious mind brainwave activity. That's the chatter. So if you want to think about it with sports, that's when your mind's do this, don't do that, and oh my gosh, this is horrible, blah, 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 blah. So the
Those are all
amount
the
of,
chefs in the kitchen.
yes, the little
Yeah.
chatter,
Okay.
the analyzing, you're doing a test and you're thinking about that you're not smart, or somebody's talking to you and you're not really thinking about what they're saying because you're thinking about what you're going to say back. That's all this chatter. That's beta activity. That's where we are most of the time in our waking state. So then again, conscious mind, not subconscious. If you relax the conscious mind a little bit, so that can be through something like a breathing technique or focusing on one thing instead of all this chatter, you can move it down into alpha. So that's a quieter, a slightly quieter conscious mind. And it's a range. It's not like a light switch. There's ranges. The range below that is theta. So in like normal terms, we would say alpha in our life is like I was just starting to relax. Like you're sitting on the couch, you're just starting to chill out. You're not thinking about a million things. You're starting to relax. That's alpha. Theta is maybe you close your eyes or not, but you could be super daydreaming. But if you're closing your eyes, you're almost asleep, but you're not asleep. And so if somebody walks in, a kid walks in, a dog walks in, a spouse walks in, you can hear them. You can, because you're not asleep, but you're super relaxed. That's theta. Right below that is delta, and that is what we call sleep. So you can think of this process, this slope, beta, alpha, theta, delta, as the process of going to sleep. You got wide awake and you have sleep at the
Okay.
bottom. So not only do you pass through alpha and theta on your way to go to sleep every single time ever in your whole life, because they're just measurements of conscious mind activity, when you wake up, you pass back up through them to get back to beta, or you might hover. If you're half awake, half asleep in bed, flip flopping, you're probably coming up to theta a little bit and then going back to delta to sleep if you go back to sleep. If you wake up and you have a hard time going back to sleep, you're probably all the way back up at the beta. So this is all stuff you're familiar with. Hypnosis, well, let's go with meditation first. Meditation is alpha or theta, depending on how relaxed you are. You could be lightly in meditation or you can be deeply in meditation. Hypnosis is the identical state of mind. So light hypnosis is alpha, and then deep hypnosis is theta. And if I have a really tired client, like a roofer who's been working on a roof in 90, 100-degree weather all day, he's going to go right into delta, right? It's hard for me to even keep him awake. So a hypnotist gives relaxation techniques like taking a good deep breath, relax your forehead. There's all different things. I can even make them up. Tighten your little toe and then release it. You're helping the conscious mind to focus on something, and then also it relaxes the body. So in meditation, you're hovering in this half awake, half asleep. Hypnosis, you're hovering. Most meditation is like guided. You might be going on a little walk on the beach or through the woods, and there can be metaphors that help you with your confidence or whatever. Or there can be mantras like repeating a word over and over again. Hypnosis just takes it to another level. So suggestions can be given to you at that time. You're not unconscious and you're not asleep. You're that half awake, half asleep. So you actually hear what's being said to you, and you can accept or reject suggestions. So if like if your wife came in and she said from now on you're going to take the garbage out every Friday, no questions asked, you're going to open your eyes and be like, what are you doing? And so when somebody hires me and we're looking to do hypnosis, if they're coming in to improve their golf performance under pressure on the final hole, I can give them all sorts of suggestions, the same way I did with the golfer with the cameras, right? You love playing all the way to the 18th hole. Not only that, but you are better than ever on the 18th hole. Your ability to focus is amazing on the 18th. Like I could say things like that. And of course, if that's what they're hiring me for, they're going to accept that suggestion. They're not going to open their eyes and say, why are you saying that to me? If I said, and and not only are you amazing on the 18th hole, but you run right off and you go to the closest bank and you steal all the money and you bring it back to me, they're they're going to be like, what? So you got to remember, you're like half awake, half asleep. You have awareness. You'll accept suggestions that you want. And once that happens, that's where it feels miraculous because we're used to trying to change things from beta conscious mind. So we're trying, I'm going to do that different. I'm going to do it different. I'm no longer going to eat soda, drink soda. I'm going to exercise every Monday. All these things we try to do consciously, but we're up against subconscious programming. So it's hard and we're not used to it being easy. So when suggestions can go into the subconscious, they can be instantaneous. And that's weird to us, right? We're like, that's weird. That's impossible. That can't happen. But that's literally what happens. So you have to allow yourself to relax and go into hypnosis by trusting it and being comfortable or whatever. And you have to be open to the suggestions. And if you have those two things going, it's seemingly miraculous because it goes straight into your programming.
I love it. All right.
Yeah.
I'd be 100% now okay with you hypnotizing me, Don. I don't know if the guy on the street or the guy in the yellow
I
books
got you.
I'm okay with, but the
Yeah.
way you explained it, I'm all in. Now, my question is, let's go back to beta and alpha.
Yeah.
I'm a coach. Are those things you're doing in theta? Should I be doing more of those things day in and day out as a coach in the alpha and beta?
Great question. And so here's the cool, and I cannot think of his name right now. I have his book out there in the other room. Basketball coach that would teach. It was one of the high coaches. He has like,
Phil Jackson.
yeah, he did meditation
Yes.
with his,
Yeah.
yeah.
With the
So
Bulls. Yeah.
he
And
was
the
all
Lakers.
into this, right?
Yep.
What was your question again? As a
My,
coach,
my question is, what can
alpha,
we
theta.
do alpha and beta or beta and alpha to help make that process with theta even easier?
So here's what you're going to love. And I love this because so I started, I'm going to tie it together, but just bear with me for a moment. In 2001 is when I started being a hypnotist and having a private practice. By 3 years later, I'm like, I'm not just hypnosis anymore. These people need to learn how to use their conscious mind better, or else they recreate their problems. If they're like consciously upset about something, they go back to drinking, go back to smoking, go back to sleep problem. So it became this combo. And then fast forward, I start working with athletes and they want the magic fix. So they came to me first for hypnosis. And then I required the mental training so they'd have long-term results. And I started noticing similarities. So hypnosis clients for years and then athletes. And the hypnosis, when you come out of hypnosis, you remember you're half awake, half asleep. It's like a power nap. It is a power nap. It feels like time flew by. It seems like everything disappeared around you. It felt amazing. You wished it could continue. There's a bunch of different things. I started working more and more with athletes, and I would ask them about the zone state. They'd go, time flew by. Everything disappeared around me. I didn't even know the cameras were there. I didn't even know the crowd was there. I didn't even know I was on the last station. I could have kept going. It felt so good. I could have kept going. And so there's years of me hearing these two things, and I was like, I'm on to something here.
Yeah.
And then 5 years ago, science started proving that the zone state, the flow state, whatever you want to call it, is alpha. So they put elite athletes up to EKG machines and they measured them during their peak performance moments. And they had proven then that the alpha state, which I already said, hypnosis is alpha theta, depending on how deep you are, the peak performance state happens in alpha. But if you break it down, it makes sense because the chatter is the beta, right? Like all athletes, most athletes know if they're over analyzing, overthinking, thinking about the previous station or round or tournament or hole or whatever, all that chatter is not their friend. And so it makes sense you have to quiet that part of your mind. So you're looking at alpha for a place where you can train to. And it's which goes back to training the conscious mind to quiet, which goes back to how do I weed out all of the conscious issues, worry, doubt, fear, second guess, regret, like all of those things.
So you're a big believer that coaches should be doing a little bit of meditation with their kids, their athletes every day.
I love that. Yeah.
And not just the breathing, but the thoughts we want to have, the pressure situations, how we want to feel about ourselves, how we want to feel about our support system, and
Yeah.
make sure we're practicing that support system so it's real.
The way that I see it is if you think of a little bridge,
Yeah.
So you've got beta and you've got alpha, theta, and delta, right? So anytime, if I have a client that has a problem going to sleep, I'm going to teach them relaxation, the bridge. I'm going to help them over the bridge. If I have an athlete that is overthinking or worrisome or a lot of whatever crappy thoughts, I'm going to teach them how to bridge techniques to get into alpha. And since hypnosis is alpha theta, then that's called an induction into hypnosis. And if you're thinking of meditation, then that's called, I don't even know what they call it. And it's a meditation relaxation sequence or something. There's different
Sure.
techniques. So that is the bridge to go from beta alpha, but it's something again to get better at with repetition. A lot of people who have never done meditation before or hypnosis before will say, I've tried that and I just can't relax my mind long enough. Or I've tried that and I'm too ADD to do that. Or I've got too much going on to do meditation. I can't relax that long. But that's just, again, that's the dog running wild. They're not even
Yeah.
trying to train it at that point. They're just throwing in the towel. And instead, again, just like if you're training a wild animal, you have to repeat it over and over again. I was going to say 54. How old am I? I'm 54. So, you
I'm in
know,
my 50s too, so I know exactly how what just happened
I
there.
stopped counting.
Yeah, my wife can never remember her age or how long we've been married. So I'm with you.
Yeah. Depending on our age, like how long has that conscious mind been running wild in the woods?
Yeah.
It's a long time for a lot of people.
It goes back to I don't know why my hand keeps hurting as the person keeps punching a wall. Why you're
Right.
doing this to yourself. And sometimes we
Right.
need that realization. I for years I'd get home from a basketball game and my wife would be there, my kids would be there, and they go, "How are you doing?" And I'm going, "What do you mean how am I doing?" That crowd was so big tonight and they were so mean to you. And I'm like, I didn't hear a word. I didn't even realize the crowd was big
Nice.
tonight. It was people yelling at me, is so that's alpha.
Yes, that is. So you were in the zone. So the zone isn't just for the person in the tournament or whatever, right? The zone is a peak performance state for all humans. So it
Right.
happens with somebody maybe acting on a stage. It happens when you're on a date and you're out on a date and the restaurant closes around you, the chairs are up and it's dark out and you don't even realize it till you like tune back in. So alpha is this kind of hyper focused in that moment with this calm, cool, collected mind and everything disappears around you. So we have that happen spontaneously in other different ways, but you can also train towards it. And it's a human thing. It's not just for athletes.
Right. One of my favorite movies is For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. And he's on the mound and he's at Yankee Stadium and they're yelling at him. And he's got this phrase that's clear the mechanism. And everything goes silent. And all he has is that focus of him and the catcher.
Nice.
And I've dreamed about that for over 50 years. How do I get that? How do I make my brain do that? And I know I'm capable of it. As a coach, I've done it for years and I've been in that zone as an athlete, but it's recreating it, it's teaching it is so hard for coaches. So I
It
love
is.
the tools you're giving me and I love the approach you take.
And it's hard because most people, humans on the planet, doesn't matter at what degree, it doesn't matter how elite they are in sports, it doesn't matter if they're a coach, it doesn't matter if they're 80. We want to look at them as older and wiser. It doesn't mean that they know this or understand this. It's hard for even somebody at a high level, even as a coach, to teach it if they don't understand it themselves. Peak performance state, again, what we want to call the zone or flow, is for every human on the planet and it's available to all of us. What you want to know is that you are your own worst enemy. You are a victim of your mind right now. And not that some people like to play victim, but it's not ideal, right? Like you want to take a leadership role and be a manager or supervisor of your mind versus feeling like a victim of it. So if you let it just keep doing its thing, it's going to keep running wild. But the alpha state, again, it's normal. You pass through it when you go to sleep, when you wake up, anytime you're daydreaming or chilled out or whatever. All humans not only have access to the alpha state, but they also have access to this peak performance state that's euphoric, that feels amazing, that it doesn't even feel like it's them To me, it's a spiritual connection, even. I could take that one step further and say, a lot of athletes will say, it didn't even feel like me. Like I was just pulling the trigger. And to me, that's a connection with your higher self, your greater self, your whatever, your spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's almost like an out of body experience. And so you get in your own way from that happening. And that is through the misuse of your mind, introducing worry, doubt, regret, overthinking, overtrying, all of those things. So if you can imagine eliminating these things, like pulling them out like they're weeds, and doing that successfully, then the state that's remains is a natural state of peace and enjoyment and productivity and inspiration and insight and momentum and all these great things.
We have been in the flow and in the zone because we've already talked for an hour, which is
I
amazing.
know, right?
Dawn, you're fantastic. Do you take new clients? Is it individuals? Do you work with groups? Do you work with teams?
I do all of it, but I have streamlined a lot by having online courses and other virtual products. So, like, I have an athlete mental game online course. I have a golfer. I have a clay shooting. I have Success for Humans. I have a weight loss and wellness one. And then I also have a stress-free mindful living. So, I have multiple online courses that take people through this process. But I have other products too, like mental training on demand and hypnosis audios that are downloads. There are large packages that include private sessions, but I've made it so that I can reach millions across the planet and not have to only be doing private sessions. So
Well done.
that's
I will pick your brain at some point if you're open to how I can do that as well, because that's my stress is I can only work with so many individuals at a time, and I want to do more. I want to help more. Where can everybody find you website wise and social media?
So my website is dawngrant.com, DAWNGRANT.com. Social media, if you just search Dawn Grant Mental Training, I'm on every single social media platform. And I do want to tell the listeners that if they go to dawngrant.com/free, that I have a page there where they can try out some of my products. So whether it's a 7-week trial, not a 7-week, a 1-week, 7-day trial, or different accesses to like maybe the online course for discounts and such, a free hypnosis audio that's a download. So it's dawngrant.com/free, and there's some goodies there.
I will be trying that out this week. Dawn, thank you so much for doing this. You're fantastic. I'm so glad we had this conversation.
You're
And
welcome.
again, I wish you well with all
Thank
the
you.
help you're providing.
Great convo. Thank you.
That was Dawn Grant, renowned mental trainer for professional athletes, and what a conversation it was. So eye-opening. She reminded us that athletes need to be practicers, not just gamers. It's a lesson that really sticks with me. You can't wait until game day to decide how you'll handle frustration, pressure, or momentum swings. I know I needed that as an athlete and as a coach, and definitely as a parent. You've got to practice those responses daily, just like you practice your mechanics. That's how you build confidence, resilience, and true peak performance. I hope this conversation challenged you, whether you're an athlete, a coach, or a parent, to think differently about the mental side of the game. Because as Dawn showed us, it's not mystical or complicated. It's practical, it's learnable, and it makes all the difference. All right, before we wrap up, remember the new baseball, volleyball, basketball, and softball recruits journals are available now, and the significant recruiting launchpad classes are open as well. You can find them all at coachmattrogers.com. Hey, thanks for listening, and until next time, stay focused, stay humble, and stay in the fight.